Hi, this is Mike Ernest, and I'm really excited to be able to share this insight with you regarding strategic talent development and how to maximize employee value and contribution with the least amount of time and effort. You will find at its heart, this presentation is really about helping companies develop a new option for becoming more productive, agile, and profitable. And to get there, we need to clearly understand how talent development is directly involved. To do this most efficiently, I like starting with Pareto's 80-20 rule. So that being said, 20% of our work activities generate 80% of the realized business value. And that probably sounds like it makes sense because we oftentimes think in Pareto's principle. But I want to be clear that we're not that clear on this 20% and this 80%. Let's go ahead and take a look at what are these 80 and 20% activities. The first one is standard communications. The things like our daily conversations with people, our ongoing telephone calls and emails and texts and all those communications that kind of acts as that glue between all activities. We do it a lot, and it doesn't really have a lot of value for us or the organization. And that doesn't mean that we can't do it. We have to. It's just there's really not a lot of value placed on it. Next step up from that is, interestingly enough, core production activities. And I define production as performing the job description that you're hired for. So if you are an accountant, it means literally doing the accounting types of activities. Or if you're a programmer, it's the coding. It's the actual doing of your work. Above that, we have basic management activities. And that means things like our day-to-day types of communications with our direct reports and our boss and our reporting activities that go into how our position fits into the overall operation of the greater organization. And it's those types of activities. Again, it's a little bit more visible. There's some importance there, but it's still in that 80% realm. So then when we go up to the all-important 20%, that 20% that's creating 80% of the value for the organization and for our perceived value by the organization, I term these activities and I group them into one thing, and that is performance in important meetings and conversations. And that's kind of a generic way of explaining several things. So let's take a closer look at what I mean by this. So when we drill into this top 20%, and we frame it as managing important meetings and conversations, there really are three different groups of people or customers that we need to interact with and that determine the value that we're creating for the organization. The first and most visible and leveraged will be with our boss and other higher authorities within the organization. It's not that we're trying to suck up to them or we're trying to create this image that we're wonderful. It's really about how much value do we create during those types of conversations and meetings? And it goes beyond the boss into when we do have contact with other higher authorities within the organization. Same questions will be used to value our inputs, our contributions in those discussions. So that's going to be at the highest level of leverage and influence. The second one is going to be with clients. And depending on our job description, it's going to either be internal clients or external clients. So it doesn't really matter whether it's an external client in another company or it's going to be an internal, maybe it's a different department or a group within the organization. We all have clients that we need to service. And in fact, we actually need to see all three of these types as customers, and we need to take care of them like customers. So clients will no question be an important area in terms of creating value for the organization as well as how people perceive our value to the organization. And the third and final group are direct reports. And this is all about how well do we interact with our direct reports in terms of nurturing them, holding them accountable, interacting with them in a way that provokes more productivity, more collaboration, more development. And those types of results certainly make their way through the organization in terms of how we do in that area. And that certainly will affect how much value we're creating as well as how people judge our value for the organization. So we need to be able to see these three groups as types of customers and the ones that we need to interact with most effectively in order to generate value for the organization, demonstrate value in our own abilities, etc. So then we need to ask the question, how well do we influence our various customers in key conversations and meetings? And when we use the term influence, it's really about working with them, collaborating with them, influencing their perceptions, their decisions, their behaviors in ways that are constructive and helpful to the organization, helpful to productivity, helpful to innovation, helpful in resolving conflicts. And in order to be able to even partially answer this question of how well we are actually doing these things, we first need to be clear on what exactly is that? What are customers looking from us for? What are our bosses looking for? What are our direct reports looking for? And what are our customers looking for? We oftentimes have kind of vague ideas, but I want to put a fine point on this to make sure that everybody's clear on where we're trying to drive relationships to. Like, what do customers actually value from their service providers, from the people who are working with them? The first one is that the people are able to align with the unique needs of their specific organization or group, and it really means politics. We need to be able to work with those constraints. We need to be able to work, within the confines of what a relationship and what a group can and can't do, whether it's timelines, budgets, skill sets, you name it. There are lots of, potential constraints in any given group. Next one is they need to be able to help them avoid landmines, meaning the customer's looking for us to be able to help them understand where landmines are, where the risk is, and be able to avoid those things. Customers are looking for obtaining unique insights from the people that they work with. They want them to challenge their beliefs. They want us to get in front of them in terms of when we feel there's a belief that is limiting, they want us to engage with them and challenge those ideas that are less than optimal or ideal. And finally, customers want people to work with them who educate them to new ideas. And so this is not a new list. This is a well-documented, well-researched list of why are customers loyal to the service providers. And this is a little bit of a unique spin in terms of extending that focus up and down to bosses and down to direct reports. But it's exactly the same thing. And you don't need to do anything other than just test this with yourself and say, is this what you would love for people to come to you with? Keeping in mind that the quality is there, that they challenge your beliefs in a collaborative and a supportive way, in an intelligent way, not in an irritating or demeaning or emotional way. But there's thought, there's quality, there's knowledge, there's preparation that's brought to these types of conversations. So how well do we manage important conversations? Now we know that that's what we're trying to manage towards. That's how we're trying to provide a service to support the people we're working with. And we've identified that we really have 3 core groups of people that we're trying to serve. And if we do those things well, we're going to be not only generating value for the organization, but it's going to be judging us accordingly. But there's a challenge. And Peter Drucker has said it time and time again, along with many other smart business leaders. And he sums it up by saying you can only improve or manage what you can measure. And when we look at important conversations and how we perform in them, there hasn't been a unit of measure. And I think that's why this key skill has gone virtually unaddressed. In some ways, it's been approached as death by 1,000 cuts in the sense that we know that communication is important. I may be bringing it more to a head, but we've known for years that soft skills and communication skills and people's ability to gain rapport and work with people and collaborate with people, we know all those things have been important. We've not been able to measure it. We've not been able to clarify how are we doing now and what could this look like. And I find that fascinating that we have performance reviews, but we don't have reviews in the top 20% of our job description. Any of us. Going back, I'm saying this is 100% universal. I don't care if we're talking about us leading things and leading entities, or we're talking about employees who are more in the ground levels. This is a skill set that must be managed, but we've never figured that out to date. So let's review what we've discussed. Managing important conversations is by far the most important and most productive skill set that we can have. But we have no ability to measure, hey, I did I had this conversation and it went this well. I wanted to make it even better, or I want to improve it, or I want to improve my own abilities. What specifically can I do? And so this inability to measure conversational performance has led us to actually not address the most important skill set that we have in our arsenal for creating value for our organization, creating value for our teams, as well as having people place value on our abilities. And we got to look at why has this important skill set gone unaddressed? And I refer to it as the communication conundrum. We have hundreds of books on communication skills, countless experts, and limitless techniques and skills. It's equivalent to having thousands of car parts spread all over the floor, knowing that this is what it takes to make up a car, but we have no model of the car to organize them into something manageable. So they're all important. And just like the books, there are a lot of fantastic books on communication and a lot of great experts. The problem is that something's been missing. As it turns out, it's a communication model for important conversations. We don't have it. We don't have a unit of measure that demonstrates how to manage important conversations, something that is easy to understand and remember in the heat of the key conversations, one that's flexible enough to support people at various levels of ability and conversational complexity, one that provides the ability to measure a person's performance, or one which demonstrates a path for ever higher performance. When I was doing my research on this and really trying to get this kind of clarified, I asked the question, have you ever seen a communication model like this before? And early on, I was really interested to hear, had somebody and did I miss something? At this point, I'm like one of those beaten up teachers who may ask the question and looks down at the floor because they know no viable response is going to come back. There isn't one. There is not a model that demonstrates this. So I've been working on this concept for probably a decade. Over the last 2 years, it became clear that this model was missing. And over the last probably 12 to 18 months, I've been able to clarify what I call the ACT communication model. And its attributes do have the important aspects that we just talked about. So it's appropriate for any conversation where there's a desired outcome. That really is the definition of an important conversation. If there isn't an outcome that matters, then it's not, and this model isn't relevant. Or if we're going to pitch something, we're not going to interact with somebody, and so it really is more of a monologue where we're just pitching a concept. That's not the same skill either. This is when we are working with our customers and we are engaging with them to influence their perceptions, their behaviors, their decisions in ways that are constructive, in ways that we feel are the best way to move forward. The ACT model also clarifies the 3 fundamental steps and gateways for managing any important conversation. It was arduous to say the least, but I was able to identify the 3 core steps that go into these important conversations, and then identified the natural gateways that need to be utilized to move from one phase to the next. The model also accommodates all levels of ability and experience. So it doesn't matter if you're a frontline person or if you're an executive or a director of an organization. Your skills, are what they are, and you can utilize this model to take you to the next level. It also allows for measurement of performance, which is, the Peter Drucker issue, and it's so incredibly accurate that how impossible is it to try to improve something that you really can't measure, which means you really can't get objective feedback on what's on and what's off. So that piece of this and the scorecarding that we use is incredibly important. And lastly, it provides clear locations for any existing strategy or skill, which really addresses another frustration, and I'm sure you all have it. And that's you read one book in communication, and no question there's going to be good information, good strategies. And then you read another one, and it will too have good information, but it's difficult to understand how do these things fit together, or where do they fit in the overall process? Because there are lots of books and great books on investigation or clarifying what's going on. And there's other great books on how do you share information. And there's other great books on how do you make sure that you have alignment or you maintain trust and rapport through a conversation. But again, these are all separate entities. And so you read one and it just becomes cumbersome or kludgy to understand how do you maintain visibility and knowledge and pick and choose what to develop in a way that it doesn't feel overwhelming or doesn't feel like you have to put one book down in order to pick another one up. So with this model in hand, we arrive at a very obvious solution, and that is to utilize the ACT communication model to standardize how effectively we manage our most important conversations in order to grow our talent as effectively and focused on the most meaningful aspects of our business. Before this model, we didn't have that opportunity, and we didn't even look at it, as we can see how this area has just gone unaddressed. But now with this model in hand, we can demonstrate and create some very quick changes. We've created an active influence training program that focuses on implementing this ACT model into the culture of an organization, and the training results have been phenomenal. We see stronger conversational performance, the use of a consistent communication model, greater conversational accountability, and the ability to measure conversational performance. And possibly more exciting than the results themselves is the training process. We've been able to distill this training down into 6 actual training hours, and we sometimes use up to 4 sessions at only an hour and a half each, or we can even scrunch that time down to one larger session if that's really what's necessary. Once you have clarity on what you're training on and what you're expecting, it's so much easier for people to learn and understand and adopt and utilize. And that's why I say the time is now. This awareness of the ACT communication model is changing everything for businesses and talent development. Within 6 hours of training time, you can be measuring a new level of performance in you or your people's most important aspects of the job description. So for the first time, you really have the opportunity to drive cultural change at your organization quickly and clearly. And that cultural change is profoundly important for the value of your company. It's all about how do we actually, not talk about, not think about, not promote, but actually execute on being better partners, being more collaborative, solving conflicts or resolving conflicts faster, stronger innovation, greater productivity. All those things happen in the trenches of people working together. And this allows us to become better at working together, better at creating value for the organization. And obviously, in return, the organization is going to place more value on us and our abilities. It sounds like a pretty good win-win situation, and I'd love to share with you more about what this could look like with your organization. So I look forward to having a conversation with you soon.